Greetings, respected viewers. It's George from Ireland. I'm in London and I'm outside the Royal Academy of Arts. So I'm filming the Academy of Arts, not myself, because I'm going to require a lot of zooming in, and I can't do that whilst filming myself. You know what I look like. Anyway, so some of the famous figures with their statues here, modern the arts are not. The Academy of Arts was founded in 1836. It's always been on this site. Sir Joshua Reynolds was one of those who pushed for something like this to be established, though he didn't live to see it. Anyway, but yeah, we'll look at who they've got. Some of the famous figures here. Leibniz, this famous 18th century German philosopher from Königsberg. It's now Kaliningrad in Russia. The last man who knew everything, although other people have got that title. Anyway, and then we've got Cuvier, so a French artist from about the time this was set up. And then we've got Linnaeus, Carl Linnaeus, that Swedish count in the 18th century, said, well, let's classify all animals and plants because you call it something or other in your language, I call it whatever in my language, and we don't really know what we're talking about. Are we talking about the same animal or not, or the same plant? So giving everything Latin names, and that's why in a zoo or a horticultural garden you'll have the name of whatever your language is, and below in brackets the Linnaean name, which is in Latin. Of course, by the time he died, a lot of things we have now hadn't been discovered, but they've since been named according to the Linnaean system. So let's say a Japanese biologist, meaning a Venezuelan biologist or whatever, using their own languages or using a common language like English, just in case there's any confusion, can use the Linnaean name. We know which one we're talking about. Like, you know, there's otter in English, in German it's a fish otter. Is fish otter the same as otter? Well, let's go to the Linnaean name, then we're sure. Right up here we've got Galileo. Okay, so that 16th century Italian artist, part of the Renaissance, Galileo Galilei, in his hometown of Pisa, the named after him. Goethe, unfortunately silhouetted up there by the sky. So the German poet of the Romantic era, a friend of Schiller's. That's why the German Cultural Institute of Art is called Institute Goethe. Goethe, it's not pronounced. Sorry, there he is. And over here, who we've got Laplace, another French artist from about this era. So if you are an outstanding artist, you can become a member of the Royal Academy of Arts and put R.A. after your name. No, not R-double-A, just R.A. Royal Academy, and it's always widely understood that means the Royal Academy of Arts. And see some of the artwork on the building here. Now, we're actually looking at the rear of the building here, so the front, obviously, I can't. I have to walk a long way around. And it's a VR, it's in Victoria Regina, because it was founded just before she acceded to the throne. The building wasn't completed until well into her reign. And various royal symbols up there. Look at these two angels, where are they? They look a bit like mermaids. And then we've got Galen, the ancient Greek doctor. Cicero, the Roman statesman, would like to give a Ciceronian oration, or indeed your Cicerone around London. But that one up, Aristotle, we know him from ancient Greece. Aristotle was a beggar from the bottle. That's if you believe Monty Python. And we've got Plato, another philosopher. Well, there, and we don't think we're going to have Socrates with the next obvious one, but you know, Aristotle taught Plato of the Republic, thinking that actually, if you so long as you have a wise king, a dictatorship is the best system, but you seldom have one. And then Archimedes, well, about displacement, Eureka! Some people are not artists, and Justinian, that Byzantine emperor who wrote Corpus Juris Civilis, as in he sorted out what the law actually was, is very much in confusion. You see the royal coat of arms, more angels over here. And the odd thing is, this clock, is it like showing which way the wind is going? I think it is. There's not really a clock to the west, and the clouds above are blowing in that direction. Oh, it makes sense. So we got Sir Isaac Newton here, that Lacanian professor of mathematics at Cambridge, as in the one who told us what gravity was. Apparently the apple falling his head, that tale is apocryphal. Right, Jeremy Bentham, the philosopher, the utilitarian with his philosophical calculus, the advocate of all sorts of reforms and the abolition of slavery, and helped to found University College London, though he died shortly before it was actually set up. Milton. Well, John Milton, Cromwell's Secretary in Foreign Tongues, fluent in so many languages, author of Paradise Lost, that epic poem about going down to hell, invented the word pandemonium, for example. He was blind towards the end of his life. partisan of the Protestant cause, Harvey, this 17th century doctor, who discovered the circulation of the blood. I mean, it might seem very obvious to us now, but people actually didn't know the blood circulated until he came along. So go in there, there's a lovely shop. Obviously there's an art gallery, which changes. It's not a fixed permanent exhibition. It's not cheap to go in. So we're in a very fashionable part of London with lots of very expensive boutiques. Cork Street there on the corner, loads of art galleries there, and straight ahead that is Bond Street with some very expensive boutiques, the priciest clothes and shoes in the realm. Okay, Adam Smith of the Scottish Enlightenment, The Economist, The Wealth of Nations and all that, and here we've got John Locke, a clergyman, an Oxford Don. He went to Christ Church, and he's got some books behind him. So he knew there was truth opposite to reason, and it is worth the seeking. He's not buried in Christ Church Cathedral, Oxford, but there's a memorial to him there, and he really perhaps the father of liberal philosophy, you could say. Conservatives would claim him as well, and he helped set up, was it South Carolina, one of the colonies as it then was on the east coast of what's now the United States. And of course, therefore, he was indirectly involved in the slave trade, and he heartily approved of kidnapping people in Africa and taking them across the Atlantic in the most appalling conditions and subjecting them to the most unspeakable cruelty. But don't let that put you off his books. Okay, so Bacon, this early 17th century jurist who was found guilty of corruption and said, "I do renounce all defence." His father, Nicholas Bacon, from St Albans, was also quite a notable figure. He's often confused with Roger Bacon, the medieval monk of Oxford. So no relation, because of course Roger Bacon had no children. Well, I suppose he could have been related collaterally, but not so far as I know. So crossing over, we'll have one last big look at it. And down there's towards Savile Row, the best shirt makers in the Commonwealth. And I can't even make out that one, it's so blinding. Oh, Davy, okay, a 19th century scientist. So if you go down towards Savile Row, that's where you can get some really stylish clobber. And apparently there's a Japanese word for very chic clothing, which is sabiro, which is a corruption of Savile Row. It's not Jimmy Savile Row, don't worry. And what else is down there? Sir Hardy Amies is in the Queen's dressmaker. He had his studio there, but unfortunately he died some years ago. And right on the corner, this big white one is Jeeves and Hawkes, which is a gentleman's outfitters going back to 1771. As in two men, Mr. Jeeves and Mr. Hawkes, set it up. Mr. Hawkes was first. Jeeves later joined them in his business. Well, that's the Royal Academy of Arts, as well worth going into. It's not actually about science, though. The Linnaean Society does have a small section of the building. Okay, I'll switch it off now.